I flip the sheet as I go through each page. It was a narration of a life in its face. I wondered why it wasn't acted on a stage. It pissed me off that I began to rage. But I know of a duet that can change one's aura. A book and a pen. Oh, you thought I would say a flora. It also keeps me emotionally fit. In solitary, all I need to do is to draw lines on my sheet. It's a companion that can make two ends meet. There is this cold sensation that it comes with. Not the chapters and paragraphs that can make you fold, but the lines and rhymes that can make you cold. Not just for you to be told, but I'll always be a poet, even in prose.
Hi, amazing people. You're welcome to the Life Center Network TV. And today we're going to be talking about the World Poetry Day. And on today's show, I'll be your host, and I'm Constance Kingsley. With me here, I have amazing people, amazing poets, in fact, who are going to be talking about the World Poetry Day today. I'd like you to get me them. All right, so can we meet you?
Edward Esther.
Okay. You. And can we meet you too?
Prince, hi.
And
Nancy Bibiash.
wow, you're all welcome. And I know that you are so interested to know what we're going to discuss about today. Well, before we talk about the theme for this year's World Poetry Celebration, I'd like us to talk about the inception of the World Poetry Celebration. I know that in 1999, the UNESCO declared the 21st of March the World Poetry Day with the goal to get fresh recognition for the national and regional and as well the international poetry movement. And I know that Nigeria is one country blessed with creative minds, people who have been able to pitch their tent in the world of poetry, both locally and globally. All right, so with this, since the inception of this World Poetry Day, I'd like to know, has this World Poetry Day been able to affect poets in Nigeria positively? In what way has it been able to influence the poets here in Nigeria? Please, I'd like you to answer the question.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, before now, you would hardly see a gathering of poets here in Nigeria. But now, we have poetry festivals here in Nigeria. For example, we have Poetry Festival Calabar. Here in Port Harcourt, we have the Evening Breeze. So I think this has been able to actually create more value and bring poets to the timeline in Nigeria.
Wow, I don't even know about this. Like honestly, I want to get the date and everything. So whenever it's time for us to go to the poetry festival in Calabar, I want to go there. Please, I'd like you to tell me more. All right, can we hear more from you?
Okay, creating a day to celebrate poets worldwide has affected Nigerian poets in a positive way. It gives us a sense of recognition and acknowledgement because you know that this is your art is recognized worldwide or globally, and also it gives us an opportunity to have a gathering because due to the recognition of World Poetry Day in Nigeria, we now have ceremonies or events to commemorate the day. Like there's even going to be one in Port Harcourt here on Tuesday, yes. So we have a chance to come together and celebrate poetry together.
Wow.
You know that, yes, I might be every other time, but when I come to a gathering, celebrate World Poetry Day, in that gathering, it's just the poetry side of me that will be present. So I have this sense of belonging and understanding because I'm with like minds.
Wow,
So yeah,
that's really
it's affected
nice.
us
So
positively.
there's this passion it builds in you the more,
Yeah.
this connection, seeing your fellow poet and all of that. That's really nice. Okay, now it's time. I'd like us to talk about the theme for this year's World Poetry Celebration. Guess what? The theme is always be a poet, even in prose. Damn, when I got to see this theme for this year's poetry, I was so amazed. Like it got me thinking. I was wondering how can one possibly be a poet, even in prose? You know, from if I could quote somebody, a British romantic writer, Williams Wordsworth, he said poetry is a spontaneous overflow of powerful feeling and as well emotion recollected in tranquility. I know that poetry has to do with more of metrical structure, it's rhythmic. It's written in verses, while prose, on the other hand, it's just an expression that is either spoken or written without metrical structure. You know, prose is more like a grammatical kind of writing and all that. It's not syllabic like the poetry. So how is it? And I know that one of the difference between prose and poetry is that prose is written freely. There is no restriction of words and all of that. But for poetry, it is written in metrical structure and all of that. So how is it possible for one to be a poet even in prose? How is that possible? Like, how is it really possible? I'd like you, Nancy, to answer that for us.
Okay, in a nutshell, I would like to say that the idea behind this theme, poetry in prose, like always be a poet, even in prose, the idea behind it is that encouraging poets to express themselves more in the society, apart from in writing and standing on stage. You're expressing yourself now in the way you behave, in the way you associate with other people at school, at church, anywhere you find yourself. You just have that little bit of poetry in you. People will see that little bit of poetry in you anywhere you find yourself. That's what I think the
Oh,
thing is
from
all
what you
about.
said right now, I think you're trying to say that it's asking people to be more creative,
Exactly.
more imaginative,
Yeah.
not just in poetry alone, but even in prose.
Yeah.
Okay, she just writes prose as though you're doing poetry. She bring up every imagination you have in there too. Oh, beautiful! I think I'd like to go with that. That's nice. So I like Bomo to give us definition of poetry. Of okay, I'd like you to give us definition of prose. Yes, what do you think prose is?
There's a saying that life is a prose. Prose is one of the most basic forms of literature. It's very simple to understand, and everyone can just really relate to a prose. It's a natural language
Okay.
for everyone. So you can just be a normal person, not even like someone that's into literature in any way, and you could understand a prose. Now, a prose is divided into two. We have our fiction and our non-fiction. Now, fiction means creative and imaginative. So we have our novels, our novellas, and our short stories. Then for our non-fiction, we have biographies, autobiographies, articles, essays, etc. Non-fiction means factual. So any
Okay.
piece of writing that is factual, like based on facts, is considered non-fiction.
Oh wow. So what about the autobiography and biography? Where do we place that? Do we place that as non-fiction or fiction as well?
Like I said, it is non-fiction. It can't really be considered as fiction because it's not really imaginative. It's not creative. You're talking about someone's life,
Okay.
something that actually happened. So it's factual.
A situation where okay, like I would like to bring in the biography because I know it's about writing. Someone is writing another person's life story. And now it's not a first-hand information. It is coming from another person. Don't you think there's a form of imagination in this? So can you really say it's a non-fiction when you bring in all of the imagination and all of that? Because I know whatever the person is going to write isn't going to be everything that happened to the person's life in the person's life. There could be other things you want to bring in and all of that. I think there's a form of imagination in it. So do you really think it should be categorized as part of non-fiction?
Yes. Because it's the creativity and the imagination that makes it a literary work. Yes.
Okay.
So it doesn't really matter if there's a little bit of creativity inside, as far as it is based on core facts,
All right.
then it's non-fiction.
That's beautiful. I think I like that. I'd like you to tell us about the word prose. Can you tell us more about poetry? Definition of poetry and other things and what you really understand by the word poetry.
Okay. If you ask me, I would say poetry is a type of literature that evokes a concentrated imaginative awareness of experience or
Okay.
a specific emotional response through language, through a chosen language rather, and arranged for its meaning, sound, and rhythm. We have different type of poems.
Okay.
We have the limerick, we have the sonnet, we have the free verse, we have haiku, and other ones. We have about 9 types of poems.
Okay.
And so I'll just speak randomly and explain what it means. So when we talk about the sonnet, we talk about love. People that like to write about love. It's a 14-line kind of poetry, and then the haiku is a 3-line kind of poetry, where the first line is 5 syllable word, and then the second line is 7 syllables, and the last
Okay.
is 5 syllables. And then the free verse, like the word sounds, free verse, it has no rules. You can go as on and on with any number of lines as you want. It has no basic rule to
Wow.
lines.
Wow.
So that's
All right. I also know of the as a ode that has to do with the address to people, right?
Yes, that's it.
And all of that. So and the 12 the poem of 14 lines. It's the sonnet
sonnet,
poem.
yes.
What about the Italian poem?
The
Can you-
Italian,
Is it the same as the sonnet?
the
The
Italian poem,
Shakespeare. Yeah.
sonnet.
Yeah.
Is this experience?
There we have Shakespearean sonnet and also Italian, right? Sonnet and all of that. So is it really different? I want to know the Shakespearean sonnet and also the Italian sonnet. What's really the
I
difference?
should answer the question. Okay.
Yes.
They are basically the same. It's the
Okay.
same 14 lines.
Okay.
However, the structure is different.
Okay.
Now there are basically 4 types of sonnets.
Okay.
The one that you mentioned, the Shakespearean sonnets.
Okay.
The structure is, the rhyming scheme
Okay.
is A B A B C D C D
Okay.
E F G
G
G.
G. Oh
Da,
yeah.
da, da, da. So that's the basic form for it, and then the other one,
Okay.
the rhyme scheme is different. So it's like AA, BB, CC, then F, then E. It's like very
Okay, but the similarity there is at that
complex.
14 lines.
Yes, they're
Oh,
all
I get.
sonnets.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, I see. Oh, that's wonderful. Right now, I'd like us to go on a short break, and when we return, we're going to discuss more of it. Please do not change the channel. Keep watching Laughs Internet or TV. Welcome back to the Live Internet or TV, and today we're still talking about the World Poetry Day celebration with the theme "Always be a poet, even in prose." We've been able to talk about the definition of prose, definition of poetry, and we've also looked at the meaning of the theme, how you can always be a poet even in prose. Now, I don't know, you must have heard of the word spoken word. And it really gets me thinking, how is it the same spoken word and poetry? I'd like Esther to get to answer that question for us. Is spoken word and poetry the same, or are there difference?
Okay, there's a difference.
Okay.
Okay, we have spoken word and we have spoken word poetry.
Oh.
Now, spoken word is just any form of oral expression of language, any form of oral. It doesn't have to necessarily be English language. Any form of expression of language orally is known as spoken word. But then spoken word poetry is the oral performance of a poem. Now we have poetry, which Ihan has already defined, and we have types of poetry. We have 2 kinds of poetry. We have the stage poem and the page poem. Now a page poem is a poem that remains in writing for people to read. It could be on the internet, it could be in a book. While the stage poem is a poem that is performed on a stage. So
Okay.
once a poem becomes performed, it's known as a spoken word poetry. But now there's a slight difference between a page poem and a stage poem. A stage poem has all forms of aesthetics. Poet aesthetics has other forms of art put
Okay.
in to spice it up, to evoke audience emotion.
Okay.
A spoken word poem is also written in an easier to understand kind of way,
Oh.
because a page poem can be left on the internet for people to go back and read as much as they want to understand it. But a spoken word poem has to be simplified because my audience is expected to understand it as I say it immediately. So I try to speak in a way that they would understand, and I try to add other forms of art, music, in forms of sound. I can also dance while I say my poem or act. So while I add all these forms or other forms of art to make sure my audience emotions are evoked to understand and feel and relate to what I'm saying, it becomes spoken word poetry. So there's a difference between
Oh, wow.
poetry and spoken
Wow,
word poetry.
it's so clear right now, and I believe the audience are enjoying this section already. That's really wonderful. So, I'd never read any poem before and have a good understanding about it on one read. It's always difficult. I really have to go back to the writer's analysis and everything for me to get to understand it. But if you read prose, it's possible you just read once and you have an understanding of whatever the author is talking about. I'd like you to tell me, can one actually read a poem and have an understanding of that poem at one read. Is that really possible?
Yeah, it's possible. And I like to say that sometimes as poets, sometimes
Okay.
we undermine the ability of our audience. I've had poem and poetry performances where I felt like nobody understood me, and then I get off stage and someone is like, I really got your poem, understood it. I'm like, oh,
Oh, wow.
wow. So as poetry evolves, our audience, they're beginning to open their minds to other forms of literature, other forms of literary mechanisms, metaphors. In fact, even the famous sarcasm that's being used on the internet, you could see some pieces of metaphoric use in them.
Okay.
We're beginning to have people generalize poetry like every day. So when you say a poem, when you write a poem, people are beginning to have an understanding of what you're saying. Also, as our audience are building themselves too, they are being exposed to understand us better. They're beginning to have the
Okay.
idea of literary mechanisms, figures of speech, metaphors, and the rest of them. And the kind of poem too is another thing. Like you cannot read a Shakespearean sonnet, yes, and just understand and expect and to just understand at
difficult.
once. Even as a poet, I have to like read most
Yeah.
times to get it. But if you're reading a free verse, which is mostly used in spoken word poetry,
Okay.
it's easy to understand. So if I write a poem in a free verse or in a rhyming scheme and I post online or I say it, it's easier for you to just get
Oh,
it at
understand
once.
it,
So the
okay.
kind of poem plays a role, and the mind too of the audience, the exposure of their mind and how
Okay.
used they are to
Wow,
poetry.
wow. This is beautiful. So it's easier for you to understand the poem if it's a free verse.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Okay, I also think that poetry, it's more ornamental, it's more imaginative and aesthetic. I don't know, than prose. That's what I think. But I do not know what you think about it. Do you think poetry is more imaginative than prose? Because I know there is also a form of imagination in prose because of the fiction part of prose, which talks about imagination and all of that. So, do you think poetry is much more imaginative than prose? If you think it is, I would like to have your reasons, and if you think it's not, I also want to have your reasons. Anyone can answer that.
Okay, I think poetry actually take your mind to thinking than prose would do. Let me give an instance. If I say, okay, if I say, woe to the tales of men in black,
Okay.
everybody wants to know what I'm thinking, what I was thinking when I said that. Everyone wants to know what next I'm going to say. So you
Okay.
want to think, you want to imagine, woe to the tales of men in black. What do I mean? You want to think. But if I just say, our forefathers has done more harm than good, you can just relate. You can just literally
Yeah,
understand what I'm
sure.
saying. So you see,
I see.
our forefathers has done us more harm than good could be a prose, just simple sentence.
So-
If I say, woe to the tales of men in black, you want to understand, you want
Okay.
to know what this thing means.
Okay, so it demands you to think more.
Yes,
So
outside
it's
the box
more. So you're trying to say that poetry is more imaginative.
than prose.
Okay, all right, I get you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
Can I
listen
say
to Momo.
something? I want to take it to another perspective now.
Okay,
The word imaginative comes from the word image, yes?
okay,
So we can say that imaginative is the mental picture that the writer or author wants to put in the reader's mind.
okay,
And prose, what prose does, prose gives you a laid down description of what they want their reader to think. They literally make the reader know what is happening. But then in a poem, it's more congested. It's literally one line. So you can have like a whole page of a prose be one line in a poem.
wow,
So and the one they literally mean the same thing, but which one would
Okay.
the reader have a
Understand.
more mental picture of? That's why I
Okay.
think that the prose is more imaginative.
oh, okay,
Okay, I'd like to add to what Prince said. Yes.
okay,
From what he said alone, you understand that poetry is actually more imaginative than prose
okay,
because he said that when he says woe to the tales of men in black, now this is where imagination comes in, right? Mental picture. It's now going beyond the writer's imagination to the audience imagination, because I'm no longer just writing a poem. I'm not provoking you to start thinking,
Thinking,
painting. I'm
okay.
painting a picture in your own mind. So it takes lots of what I'm doing right now is prose. I'm just having a conversation. We're having
Because I can
conversation,
understand it
yes, and
easily.
you understand easily.
Okay.
If I want to write a poem, if I want to change everything I've said there to a poem, I have to sit back take my time and recreate it.
Okay.
So poetry demands more creativity, takes more thought, like it's more thought evoking for both the poet and the audience. So I think poetry has
Oh
it for
wow.
imagination.
Wow. I must appreciate you. Thank you so much. Wow, okay. I know very well that there's restriction of words when you have to write poem. I don't know, but for prose it's more grammatical. There is no restriction at all. So do you think that with the restriction of words when writing a poem, it's kind of a limitation to poem? Don't you think so? Because since the words are restricted.
No, it's not.
Okay.
I don't think it's a limitation.
Okay.
You can actually, in one sentence, describe everything you have in mind. You can
Okay.
even use one word to actually. You can even use one word to actually describe what you have in mind. Once you have an audience that is they are well read.
Okay.
Okay, so you can, in one sentence, describe everything you have in mind, even if it's not a prose, but your poetry can explain everything.
Wow.
Even if it's just 4 lines.
Okay.
You can actually
So the
describe.
limitation of, okay, so the restriction of words isn't a limitation
No,
at
it's
all
not.
to
It's
one's
not.
imagination and writing a poem. Wow, that's really beautiful. Okay, so I'd like to ask us personal questions right now. I want to know what inspires you.
Okay.
What inspires you while writing your poem?
As a poet. Okay, basically, as Christians, yeah, we
Okay.
know we draw our inspiration from the Holy Spirit.
Oh wow, Holy
yes,
Spirit.
yes. So that's
he's the
that's
source.
primary. Yes,
Okay.
he's our source exactly. But I like to like come to like other aspects of inspiration. For me personally, as a poet, I draw inspiration from my experiences.
Okay.
Like most of my poems from the past are from experiences I've had. They're from my experiences and experiences of those around me.
Okay.
I find it easy to empathize with the feelings of others a lot.
Oh,
So
wow.
I take advantage of that, yes. I imagine myself in their shoes and I write a poem like them. So I would say I become every character I write about.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, another thing too that inspires me to write is compulsion. If I'm given a theme to write on, I just sit down and think about it and I write. So if there's compulsion to write on this topic, I write. I can write on anything at all you give me to write on. Yes, yeah. And another thing too is I would just say fiction. Yes,
Okay.
fiction. I like to go out of the box and think wide and just
Okay.
write. So
Think without the box
yes,
even.
yes.
Okay.
So yeah,
Wow.
so I write fictional, drawn by
Okay.
experiences and then compulsion.
So can you tell me what kind of poem do you write?
Okay, I write rhymes and then, but mostly I do free verses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I like free verses because I don't think I stick to the rules a lot, so I like to
Okay.
just flow. Yes.
Okay, so it just
Yeah.
makes it easier.
Yeah.
All right, beautiful. Nancy, I'd like you to tell us what inspires you.
Okay, well, as a Christian, I'll say the Holy Spirit too.
The Holy Spirit.
Yeah, but I'm also inspired by things happening around me,
Okay.
events, and not just things happening around me, things happening to people around me also. So I'm inspired by things happening around me.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. To you, Mr. Prince, what kind of poem do you write?
Okay, as a Christian, firstly, Holy Spirit inspires all of us
Okay.
to write. And then I tend to put myself in people's shoes to know what they're feeling and write about it.
Okay.
And of course, as a poet, you have to write about things happening around you, so I do that a whole lot. But one
Okay.
thing that is very, very astounding that inspires me is sound. I
Okay.
can just pick up a new sound, maybe download a new sound or a new song, and I want to write. I just want to pick
Wow.
my pen and write. That's one thing I find very inspiring.
Okay. Well, I know right now the audience are eagerly waiting to see you perform. So I'd like you to present one of your poems for us.
Okay.
The title and
Okay. I actually did this short piece based
Okay.
on the theme for this year's World Poetry Day. I'll title it Poetry is Life.
oh wow.
Yeah. So I have this confidence that if I were to be issued a license, finding a line or two won't be a coincidence. I could give you a pill or maybe two. It will surely do your heart good. And if you're ever feeling blue, I could be your hip hop tune.
Life is poetry. If you take a closer look at history, every date, every person, every story, behind every betrayal and glory is a line or two portraying life's beauty. As for me, I will always be a poet, even in my prose, in the open or in my closet, no matter how life goes. I will, yes, I will always be a poet.
Wow, I'm so
It's
into the
giving,
poem
it's
already.
giving.
Like it. Oh my God. I know the audience
Beautiful,
already feeling what I'm
beautiful.
feeling right now. I think it has a rhyming scheme. Can you tell us about the rhyming scheme?
I think it's a blank verse.
Oh, a blank verse.
Yeah.
I saw it and the poets, Rose, and oh, it's fine. Okay, so, but what can you present to us? Just before.
So, I wrote a poem
Okay.
titled Mammon. Okay. What do you have to offer? If you are not ready to suffer, then the door is not far. Go away with your lack of motivation, your very little determination, and your attitude that reeks of irritation. Because this is a man's world. But don't be fooled, it can't be ruled by anyone who has won the fight between darkness and light. For this is a battle of the mind. It's not for one that is kind. And may I remind you that your nonchalant attitude will be refused. For he is coming. The man-made God that has somehow plowed the minds of the mass population. He needs no introduction. You hold his relic in your pockets and wallets, don't you forget that you're meant to pray to the Almighty, but ultimately you think you depend on his company. That demon, Mammon, he has taken control of the common, for mere men cannot withstand nor understand the complexity of his ability. His ability to control style, standard, and respect. Him I wish to reject, but I too hold his relic in my pocket.
Oh my precious son, oh my God. I just feel like you shouldn't stop. Oh my God, this is beautiful. So what about the rhyming scheme? Because I know that it has rhyming schemes everywhere. So can you tell us about the rhyming scheme?
That is AB.
Okay.
That is AABB.
Oh, AABB.
It's a really nice
Beautiful.
rhyming
I think you're going to, I want to be a poet. I want to be a poet, like I want to be a poet. You're going to be my mentor. All right, so can we have you, Esther?
Okay, I'll be saying a poem. It's titled Our Community.
Okay.
It's actually not short, so okay, so we used to be a very peaceful people. You could literally inhale serenity in the air. Fathers were symbols of security and mentorship. Mothers stood side by side with nurturing in a sentence. Sisterhood and brotherhood was not a farce. When we talked about the hood, blood was to light a bond. Our unity was something biology could not define. We upheld love and justice in their purest forms like a mantra. Our community was home. It was difficult to separate the poor from the rich. If I had bread, my brother had too. The only thing we could not share were our wives, but as for our lives, we lived for each other. The waists of our maidens were poetry. You need to see them dance to understand what I mean. Our young men were our pride. We called them Okorobia, Dimpa, but their hearts steadily beat with strength and victory. We never lost a war when unity was our weapon. Our festivals were simply divine. We had the sponsorship of spirits because even the heavens was interested in this community. But then we became too wise. We grew proud. We became selfish. I became the beginning of our sentences. It was no longer our community. It was my community, my land, my flocks. We began to speak a different language. And our fall was greater than that of Babel. We lost our first strength, our understanding. It was no longer us against the world. It was me against my brother, the rich against the poor, fathers against the youths. The hood became stained with blood, so our community is nowhere to be found.
Oh my God. Poetry in this stimulates one's emotion. I'm so emotional right now. God. Give me a high five, Esther. Give me a high five. I think you're going to mentor me too. Yes. All right. Can we have you, Mr. Brent?
All right.
Wrap it up for us.
Okay, I titled this piece Liquid Love.
Oh, liquid love.
Yeah.
Wow. My
Okay.
ears are.
This is liquid, much thicker than the milk that gushes from a mother's chest to the mouth of a baby. this is liquid. Not as volatile as the wine drunk in the tables of a boyfriend and girlfriend or husband and wife. This thing is definitely infinitely defined beyond size and shape, though your heart be black and blind in darkness and may have flown to heights like a kite. This liquid is able to wash it down as white as a snow because it's not bothered about the heights, and no walls can bother this ocean. Hallelujah. This is a liquid love that flows from the cross, the type that could turn a dying thief into a chief. See, it's more in abundant supply than the love of an earthly father. This liquid flows faster than electricity. It can see things. Even in deep downtown, there is not an electric city because it's strong in connectivity and conductivity. The capacitance of the capacitor powers the universe and envelopes the multiverse. Listen, I'm talking about that grace of God that has appeared to all men that teaches them not just to live right, but to be that right, the righteousness of God. This liquid, it draws men, it compels men to righteousness, and the capacity of its magnetic flux density none can measure. It's not far-fetched from every heart and soul in this room. Just say, I do. I do to finish work on the cross of Calvary. Forget about the depth of your darkness. Peter, just walk on this water, for this can couple a broken heart faster than a just wedded couple. This
Oh my
is a liquid love.
Oh my God.
This is the liquid love, the eternal river, the pure crystal aqua. Hey, I'm not speaking Igbo. I don't mean aqua. I mean the living water that flows from the breath of Alpha. Without a radioactive decay, this liquid stretches more elastic than the firmament. Without a radioactive decay, this liquid flows more elastic than the horizon. This is a liquid love. For no earthly love can produce this so much light, life, freedom from the grips of Satan, hope for today and tomorrow. What manner of love is this that a man chose to give his own life for a word as guilty as Satan's identity number, SIN?
Oh my.
Okay. We see you, Prince. We see you.
I feel like he shouldn't. I feel like he shouldn't stop. It just keeps flowing and flowing. Damn, who said I don't want to be a poet? A poet rather. Maybe I'm going to. Yeah, my third mentor. And wait, oh God, like I feel like this section shouldn't get over, but I'm very sure that's the exact way the audience are feeling right now, but we don't have the time. All right, keep watching Lives Internet Network TV. You can follow us on Facebook, Lives Internet Network. Please do not forget to keep watching Lives Internet Network TV. And see you again next time. Bye for now.